Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Only Land Fan Show. My name is Kendall Lejeune, and our guest today is Drew Haney. Drew Haney is a seasoned real estate investor with a proven track record of success. After scaling his land flipping company to seven figures, he founded Rooster Capital, a land funding company that provides capital for 15 to 20 flips per month. Drew is also involved in numerous minor land subdivisions and entitlements. With over 600 deals completed across 35 states, Drew has a wealth of experience in the land investment industry. He is passionate about partnering with solid operators and money partners to create successful real estate ventures. Drew, thanks so much for joining us. How are you today?
Kendall, I'm just excited to be here to talk with an old friend and catch up.
It's always a blast. I'm so glad that you are joining us again for now a masterclass episode. This is not your first time on the show. Now we're diving a little bit deeper into a topic. That topic today is going to be your journey from land business operator to land funder and all of those lessons that you learned in between. So super excited to chat with you about that. Thank you for joining us. So for those listening that may not be familiar with you, can you give us a little bit of your background? How did you get started in doing land and what do you do today?
Okay, spent my 20s in the military, jumped out of airplanes, did a lot of paperwork. Left the Army 2017. I spent 2 years as full-time day trader, making $0, but having a lot of fun. Realized, so by 2019, I had a 1-year-old child and realized that I needed to grow up and get a real job. So we moved back to the States. We were in Korea at the time, South Korea. Moved back to the States, got a job as an auditor. I was still day trading on the side. I lost half my net worth in the March 2020 COVID flash crash. And I was like leveraged 7 futures contracts long, which means when it went down, I lost like 60K like in 12 hours. And after that, I was like, this is not working. I need to figure out something else. This is not a way to live my life. So I stopped day trading. I actually made back the money, but stopped day trading. And then summer of 2020, Eric Wong, who's an army buddy from Fort Bragg, he was like, hey, I'm like doubling, tripling my money on every deal. You should look into this. And he was doing the Land Geek business model. So I purchased Land Geek Education, executed the course exactly as they said. I'm an army guy. I just do what I'm told. So I followed the checklist, did the thing, it started working. So I just started doing it more. Quit my day job about a year in, and I've been doing full-time flips or subdivides or funding deals now for 3 years. Just hit my 4-year anniversary in the business this summer, and I'm excited to continue growing, excited to share what I've learned, and just excited to meet new people.
I love it. I love it. So started in the land business, you had your own business, you were flipping land. Uh, Talk to us about how you started doing things on the funding side. How did Rooster Capital come to be?
Yeah, I have Jared and Asia Barnes to thank for that. Also Ajay Sharma. I was in the desert in rural California for Army Reserve exercise in that would have been June of 2022. And Ajay knew I had a low six-figure amount in my bank account, and he knew that I was frustrated. Like at that point in my business, I was the bottleneck. I had not yet hired an acquisition manager, and so I just didn't have enough time to deploy that capital. And so he knew it. And then Jaron calls Ajay, and Jaron's, hey, I need a funder like ASAP. I had a funder that just backed out the day of closing. And so Ajay calls me. I'm like standing under a tree trying to get enough signal to wire money. And I funded the deal. And then after that, Jared and Asia were like, hey, you are super easy to work with, low maintenance, low stress. Do you just want to fund like all of our deals? And I'm like, sure, if I can. So I started funding all of their deals. And then I run out of money pretty quick, right? So then I learned how to arbitrage monies. Like Brian's on this call. Brian is a real estate developer, but he's too busy to deploy his own capital. He doesn't have enough time to spend 6 to 8 hours a day like I do in this business. And so he's often the money source for these flips. And then I simply split my cut with him, right? So I built this big machine. And now I fund more deals than just Jaron and Asia's. I have like 5 to 10 operators. But so whenever I have my own money, I fund it myself. And whenever I'm out of money, I arbitrage. I use somebody like Brian's money. We split the cut, and I've built the machine, and he's got the capital, and it's a win for everybody.
Calling all ambitious land flippers, ready to transform your business with proven systems and processes? Imagine this. One of my students recently closed 2 land deals and got another under contract in just 24 hours. That's the power of a well-oiled land flipping machine. My exclusive coaching program is specifically designed for action takers just like you. We'll build out your entire operation from lead gen to dispo, implementing these systems on real deals from day one. But hurry, I'm only accepting 3 new students until 2025. If you've done deals, have a growth mindset, and are ready to scale, visit kindlecall.com now. Let's turn your land business into a consistent profit powerhouse. I love that. I love that. Now, one of the common thoughts in the real estate space, I've seen it in the single family space, I've seen it in land, multiple different real estate niches, but really that's one of the trajectories that a lot of people dream of taking is going from a business operator, or land business operator, to then becoming the funder and not having to be as active in the business. So talk to us about what that experience has been like, taking off that
Yeah,
business operator hat and now putting on that funder hat.
I want to destroy that construct. People believe that there's this like hierarchy where like you start as the flipper and then you graduate to a funder. It's not better being a funder, it's just different. And there's many days where I wish I was like hunting $1 million deals like Ajay does. So yes, if you look at the ratio of dollars per hour, a funder makes way more, right? Like it doesn't take a whole lot of time. But if you look at other ratios like brain damage per dollar, or like stress per dollar, or risk or liability per dollar, like a funder's ratios are horrible. And
Mm,
it's not better or worse. It's not a graduation. It's just different. I have different problems. So as a land flipper, you probably get to enjoy your weekends. I don't. Okay. So I'll need 200K on Monday, and I don't enjoy that Friday night or Saturday night.
yeah.
And I have to call people on a Sunday. Nobody wants to do a business call on a Sunday. I have to find 200K on a Sunday, and I've done it every time. I haven't missed a single closing yet. There's one exception, but that's a longer story. But it's just different. It's not better. So I don't know if that's the answer you're looking for.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. It's great insight. So if someone's listening to this and they're like, well, dang, my whole career, I thought I was working towards being this funder. What's the pro to doing that? It sounds like it's a super high stress. So why
Yeah,
do you?
Brian says he messaged me when I was in Brazil. Yeah. If you're in my network, you're not getting shielded. I'm gonna call you at weird hours. I'm gonna call you at 11 p.m. and I'm gonna need like money the next morning. And hey, Cody, nice to see you.
Yeah. So talk to us about what is that? What's that pro to being a funder? You did mention that it was higher dollar per hour kind of breakdown, but what personality type would be best suited for a funder versus being a land business
Yeah.
operator, for example?
Yeah, good question. You need to have an abnormal level of detachment to money
Mm.
because you're just sending it off. Like it's the weirdest thing. It just goes away. Sometimes it doesn't come back for 18 months, right? We've had we've had so out of 640 deals, I've had 3 losses. Okay. But if we have another 2008, there's a very high chance that most of those deals are going to be break-even deals, and there's going to be a pretty significant amount of losses. Maybe 10 to 20% of your inventory, you may be selling at a loss. And the rest you're going to get stuck in for 2 years waiting for liquidity to return. Yes, the hours are better. Like I'm not working 10-hour, 12-hour days anymore, but literally your whole net worth is at stake. And you're just like, that's it. Like you're either going to make 1.5 million or you're going to lose a bunch of money and get sued. It's like almost binary, it feels. I'm trying to remember your original question.
No, yeah. So I asked what personality type is best suited
Yeah,
for
okay.
funders versus land business operators.
Yeah, so I would say 2 things. I already covered the first one, which is an emotional detachment from results. Okay. And then number 2 is understanding macroeconomics and understanding the big picture. Because
Mm,
if you don't, like 2024 for most of us, including me, was a very slow year. Okay. I'm going to make a third this year what I was expecting. Okay. Let that sink in. I'm going to make a third of what I was expecting. It's still 5 times more than my W-2, but still, if you don't have the ability to see the big picture, and then you have a slow year like this year, you're gonna be out of the business because you're gonna think that everything's ending. But if you understand like macroeconomic cycles, hey, this is gonna happen once every 5 to 10 years. You're gonna have a really slow year. There's gonna be no liquidity, and that's okay. And once
Mm.
every, I don't know, few decades, you're gonna have a 2008 and you're going to lose a ton of money. And that's okay also because you need to be able to see the big picture.
Yeah, that's really good. So if someone's listening to this and they're like, Drew, I've just been on this land flipping grind, but I'm really interested in doing this funding. What's the first few steps that they need to take to be able to understand the macroeconomic cycles and the bigger picture?
Yeah, you need to be doing audiobooks like every chance you get, driving, airplanes, whatever, just to understand like the big picture. So
Do you
I,
have any titles that come to mind? Books?
man, I did these 10 years ago. I also got an MBA, so it all gets mixed together.
Yeah.
But you need to be educating yourself and you always need to be growing. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, that's really good. Now, you said something interesting earlier about you have to have an abnormal detachment to money and results. I know that the entrepreneur in me gets like a little itchy when I hear that. So, how did you start that process? Have you always been that way? Have you always had an abnormal detachment to money, or how did you develop that?
Yeah, good question. I have a significant advantage. I spent 5 years day trading and looking at charts and literally seeing I'd make 2 grand one day, I'd lose 2 grand on corn the next day, and just seeing myself make and lose money every single day. Eventually, your brain's F this. I need to detach these synapses from the result. And it like severs those connections. And then you just stop caring. And then you're able to be much more stoic. So a good example is, let's say you have a good operator, you know that they have a good track record, but the very first deal you fund is a dud. I think most people would not fund the second deal, right? But if
Mm.
you know the big picture and hey, 1 out of 5 deals is going to be a dud. We're going to sell it for just over break even, right? 1 out of 5 is going to be a home run. The other 3 out of 5 are going to be average performance, right? But if you get that dud on the first time and you don't know how to see the big picture, you're going to bail on the operator immediately, and you might miss out on 2 years of great partnership.
Yeah, that's really good insight. That's really good. Now, you mentioned earlier about arbitraging money, and my ears perked up with that. So, can you dive in a little bit more about how do you go about arbitraging money? What if you had to lay out like these are the big tent posts for that particular model? What does it look like for you?
Yeah, so I actually don't recommend it, and Brian knows this. This is not a knock on him. So when I arb money, if you think about it, let's say I'm splitting my cut with somebody. I'm splitting my cut with a house flipper. He understands the business. He doesn't have time to deploy his capital. Split my cut with him. If you think about it, it's twice the amount of work for half the amount of money. So in
Mhm.
terms of effort per dollar, it's 4 times worse. Arbitraging is something that I only recommend you do once you run out of your own money. So I would say start funding deals with your own money first. Those are going to be super easy because the cash is just sitting there. It just takes you 5 minutes to wire it, right? Once you run out of that money, then you have to figure out, okay, where do I get the money from? Do you borrow the money? And if you're going to borrow the money, do you borrow it from a person, a bank, credit card? Like, how are you going to get that money? And then that lender is going to want collateral. So how do you collateralize? You got to figure that out. And the operator is not going to want your lender to collateralize their land, right? And so then you're in this conundrum where you're like, man, arbing money is really hard and it sucks. And that's why I split my cut with money partners like Brian, because he trusts me. I trust the operator. Everyone trusts each other. And Brian doesn't need to be on title because Brian and I have a private agreement. I have a private agreement with the operator. And these are small enough deals where he's not risking his whole net worth on one deal. And so that's why it works for me. But collateral, I would say, is one of the biggest obstacles that you're going to run into once you try to
Mm.
arbitrage the money.
How do you handle that? What do you do for collateral?
I just I don't do any collateral. I just say, hey, you fund this deal, I'll give you half my cut. There's no collateral. You need to vet me as a human. Am I gonna F you? Am I gonna screw you? Just understand what I have at stake. Wife, two kids, 800 credit score, like really good track record. Why would I ruin that over 50K? Right?
Mhm. Yeah. Now you just mentioned 50K. You also mentioned that these deals are not the size that it would completely destroy a private lender, for example. So what size are these deals? Could you give us some context about that?
Yeah, I just pitched in front of 500 investors here in Southern California. So I actually know the numbers because I ran them. Our average buy is 33,000 and average sell is 68.
Imagine having a complete toolkit for success right at your fingertips. That's exactly what you get with Only Land Fan School, our premium online community. For a low monthly fee, access our treasure trove of resources, the on-market deals course, acquisitions tool suite, and Dispo Secrets library. Plus, connect with fellow flippers in our active community. Whether you're hunting for deals or closing sales, Only Land Fan School has you covered with step-by-step guidance and insider knowledge. Ready to supercharge your land flipping journey? Join Only Land Fan School at olfschool.com today. Cool. Okay. Nice. So, what are because you gave I think you gave a pretty compelling case against arbitraging money. So what would be the alternative? So if someone is, listen, I really want to do this lending thing. I don't have the time, the bandwidth to hunt deals down and be a land business operator, but I think I want to get on the funding side. What are the other alternatives to
All
arbitraging
right,
money?
Kendall, I'll give you the answer. If you're out there and you know a way around collateralizing an arbitraging problem that I just described, please tell me because I've spent the past 2 years trying to find it and I have not found a solution. It's just really hard. And if you want to scale a funding business, you're going to need to find money, and then that money source is going to want collateral, and then you're going to be I don't want you on title with the operator because I don't want to bother the operator. And if you are going to be on title, let's say Rooster Capital's on title for all these deals, then I have to create a whole new department for transaction coordination. That's insane too. So either way, it's hard. It's not better or worse than being a land flipper, but that's the hard part of this business is once you run out of your own money and you want to continue funding deals, where do you get that money? How do you collateralize it? Now you have an investor relations part-time job. Now you have people asking you the status of deals, and then your answer is going to be, it hasn't sold yet. There's leads. So it's just tough. And this is why this business pays well.
Yeah, got to pick your hard. So, can you talk a little bit about how do you handle the stress of investors constantly asking, "Hey, what's the status of this?" Do you lay out timelines? How do you manage all of that?
Yeah, so most of them are pretty good. Brian's great. If they're too high maintenance, I just don't go back to them. I simply, like, it's not worth my brain damage, right? And I've had to do that a couple times.
Yeah.
It's not worth me stressing. Like I had one guy, I actually still do business with him, but I had one guy, he funded a dud. It was a flip that took 10 months to sell, and then he made 3% on his money in 10 months. And he's, dude, what the heck, man? What's up with this? Is this a trend that's going to continue? And I ran his deals. He had done 8 round trip deals. And I'm like, bro, you've averaged 17% ROI in 4 months on average, which is like 40 something percent a year. And after that, he was like, yeah, you're right. That's actually really good for just wiring money 8 times. But if I have somebody who just can't see the big picture and they're high maintenance, I'm not going to do business with them. It's not worth my energy.
Yeah, that's really good. There's an emotional and an energetic price to working with certain private lenders. I would venture to guess. Can you talk a little bit about how you go about pitching and what's your approach to that and how do you find private lenders and all of the things when you go out on the hunt for private money? How do you approach that? What's the Drew Haney approach to that?
Yeah, so I've had massive success in the friends and family network. To find someone to fund a deal less than 100K is pretty easy for me. I've been going after big fish for about a year now, and it's still been very difficult. So, for example, there's a guy here, he actually lives like walking distance from me. He's very wealthy. His net worth is well into the eight figures, close to nine figures. And I built a relationship. We've gone out to probably 20 to 30 lunches and breakfasts. I taught him how to shoot, helped him buy his first Glock. Like I did the whole thing. And then at the very end, where I'm like ready, like we're ready to do business, I realized I'm like, this guy's gonna drive me nuts. He's gonna ruin my life. And if something goes wrong, he's gonna sue me because I learned his character. And so I like fired him, but I just I have not had success at the higher levels. I've pitched banks. I'm talking to a fund right now. They all love it, but I think for the banks, the collateral comes down to the collateral. So they want to collateralize the land, and I don't want my operator to deal with someone else at the closing table.
Why
And
is
then
that? Why is that?
like I've had lenders come and they just make the whole process so much more brain damage for the operator. My whole thing to the operator is, hey, Drew funds your deals. Drew's faster, better, and more pleasant to work with. And then I bring in this lender and they want collateral, so I bring them to the closing table, and the lender just makes it super difficult. They're super picky on what documents they need. They'll blow up at the title agent. They'll ruin the relationship between the title agent and the operator. And the operator's, hey, like I've been cultivating this relationship with this title company for the past 2 years, and your lender comes in and makes me look really bad. I've nobody said that to me, but that's like the unspoken thing that happened.
Yeah.
And so I from the operator's perspective, I want them to do what they're good at, which is doing deals. And I want them to have a metaphorical bell on their desk. And when they ring that little bell, money shows up. And it's the lowest maintenance money possible. That's my goal. And when I don't provide that level of service, it really bothers me.
Yeah, that's really interesting. All right, didn't mean to cut you off there. Do you remember where you were in your in the train of thought that we were talking about?
No.
All good, all good. I think we were talking about how you go about raising money. You were talking about how you were having a little bit of difficulty at the higher levels of private lenders and things like that. But you fired your neighbor guy, and
Yeah.
yeah, so
He's still a nice guy. He's actually on the board of a bank, wants me to. Anyways, he's still a great connection, just not a good fit right now. Kendall, I don't get it because I've created pitch decks. I've shown the numbers of this business. I have all the results to back it up, 643 deals. And I've shown how lucrative it is and how them as a money partner can do really well. And like I've got two college degrees, I've got 11 years in the army, wife, two kids. Like I'm like the poster child of what trustworthy looks like. And I think it's just too small of a business model for these larger institutions to want to mess with. It's in this weird gap. And that's why if there's a liquidity gap, and that's why we do really well, is because the larger institutions don't mess with cheaper pieces of land under 100K.
yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. I think there's an inefficiency in the market. There's a gap there, and you're able to find that and exploit it. That's really good.
I will
So,
say, Kendall,
yeah,
one area I have found success is for a minor subdivide where you use an ag lender. Um, I've found success. So what's happened multiple times is operator comes to me, hey Drew, we've got this buy for $1 million, sell for 2 million, whatever in Texas. And I've spent the past 6 months cultivating a healthy relationship with my ag lender. And so so the operator gives me JV cut, usually 50-50 on a subdivide, 60-40 on a flip. So my cut is 50%, and they don't care where I source the money from. So then I go to my ag lender. I say, hey, here's the deal. I'm in on this deal. Like, here's everything about it. I pitch them the deal, and then they fund it usually 60 to 80% loan to value of the purchase price. And then I cover the down payment plus improvement costs. So let's say it's a buy for 1 million. Let's say the lender lends 800K. I need to come to closing with 200K of my own money. And then I also fund the improvements. Let's say it's 100 grand or whatever. So I'm in it for 300K. Let's say we net 800K on the deal. So I just put out 300K to make 400, and the operator just made 400 just from their labor. And so that's an area I've found success is using ag lenders because they understand the game.
Hmm. So, what advice would you have for someone that's never worked with an ag lender before and is looking to find a good one?
Like you need to start building. I don't know how to find them, but once you find one, you need to court them like you're chasing a college girlfriend or something. Like I had an ag lender that got sick in Oklahoma, and I skip traced his house and sent him chicken noodle soup. Okay.
It's
That's
good.
the level. And it was like cost me $30 to send like a $7 can of soup or whatever. But that's the level that you need to be at. You need to be the best, you need to be the fastest, and you need to care the most. And that's how you're going to get these deals done on both ends with the operator and the lender.
I love that. So, can you talk about how do you present to someone like, let's say it's a friend and family member that has never deployed any kind of capital before. They know a little bit about what you do, and you're looking to recruit them to be a private lender for you. What does that look like? How do you structure that?
Yeah, there's a pretty sizable education process. And the problem is if you explain it in a way that a normal person should understand it and then they still don't understand it, that's a sign that they're a bad fit. Because if you have a deal that goes south, they're going to throw a fit and they're going to blame you and they don't understand how the business works. So they need to either already understand the business model or once you explain it, they need to understand it very quickly. Okay. Or they just need to not care about money, which is rare. But you need to take them through an education process, maybe build a slide deck. I create a lot of looms. I actually show them under the hood, behind the scenes spreadsheets, and I'm showing them, hey, here's the performance, here's the averages. Look, here's my three losses. Here's the story behind each one. Look, we have a lot of deals that are just over break even. We one out of five deals is a dud. One out of five is a home run. The other three out of five are pretty average, right? And they need to understand this is a numbers game. And if they just fund one or two deals, their expectations, like Brian, so Brian's still on the call. His very first deal he funded, he made like 10 grand in one weekend. Okay. That's not normal. And then I'm assuming I think he just had a dud where he made $1,000 after a whole year. That sucks. But you need to understand the big picture that you need to fund enough deals to see these averages play out.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's investing. At the end of the day, it's still investing and there's inherent risks. Can you talk a little bit about when you're going through this education process, what are some of the averages that you share with these potential investors about, okay, this is the timeline that you can typically expect, this is the return that you can typically expect. I think those are probably the two most important things that people want to know. How
Yeah.
much am I going to make and when am I going to get my check? Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so average ROI that like I call them backup funders. Average ROI that my backup funders are seeing, they're seeing these are my actual numbers. They're seeing 14.9% ROI per deal. Okay. And then on average, the past 18 months I've been arbing the money, we've averaged 135 days on market. Okay. So if they could turn that money 2.7 times a year or whatever it comes out to, that's 40% a year. That's great.
Hey there, land fans. If you're enjoying this episode and would like to see more episodes like this, please be sure to let us know by liking and subscribing below.
That's good. When you lay that out, how do you manage their expectations so you don't have someone on like day 134 saying, "Hey, I need my money"? How do you manage that?
I just fire them. I just fire them.
So you
Yeah.
say, "Hey, what do you mean by firing? What do you do?"
I haven't had to buy anyone out yet, but I would just buy them out or just not bring them more deals. If you're like your gut is going to tell you who's good fit and who's not. Like I never want to take anyone's life savings, but you're going to be able to vet them on the front end and you shouldn't have too many issues on the back end.
That's good. So if someone's never done this before, they've never vetted someone before, what are some of the maybe the 3 to 5 top things that you look for in terms of what a good backup funder would be?
Yeah, trying to think of my current people. A high income earner helps. The size of these deals needs to be big enough to where it's worth their time, but small enough to where they're not stressing about it, right? Someone making over 200K a year would be a good fit. Someone who is already in real estate is super helpful. If they're in houses, that's even better because houses are worse. What else? I have everyone from like my wife's cousin funding deals all the way to a Navy SEAL in Germany right now. And I have a Chick-fil-A owner in Nevada. Like, there's gonna be a wide variety of people, but in general, the more money they make, it means the more they understand macroeconomics, and they're probably gonna catch on faster. I would say a bad fit is like a kindergarten teacher making like 50K a year, and you're investing her only 15K into a deal. That's really scary because yes, the averages, but you never want to like risk somebody's whole net worth on one roll of the dice.
Yeah, that's really good. So you've done over 600 deals at this point in your career. I'm sure you've seen lots of market fluctuations. Talk to us about what you're seeing right now, generally nationwide. What's the average that you're seeing in terms of the state of the market?
Yeah, just slow down. It's just slow. I freaked out a few months ago and I'm like, oh, the world's ending. But then I'm like, no, the world's not ending. It's just really slow. I'm
Yeah.
seeing about a third to half of like right now we've been averaging like 5 deals under contract on the exit out of an inventory of about 50 parcels. So that's 10%. Normally I'm seeing about double that. So about 10 deals under contract out of an inventory of 50 parcels.
Hmm. Yeah.
So
Interesting.
I guess a way to translate is the days on market have doubled, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. So, speaking of the state of the market, what are some of the biggest opportunities right now in the land space that you've seen that not very many people are taking advantage of? Or where do you think the the future is, the next step is in the land space?
I'm gonna do a counter to that because so 4 years ago it was cool just to flip land. And then you're a loser if you're only flipping land. You should be doing minor subdivides. And then now you're a loser if you're not doing entitlements. And there's always gonna be some new thing. I'm an advocate of just do what works and just keep doing that until it stops working. I do want to make a comment on our previous topic. So, in terms of the economy and stuff, one thing that I don't think operators realize, and I didn't realize until a few months ago, is that so an operator, let's say you're outsourcing 100% of your deals to a funder, okay? And then all of a sudden the market goes twice as slow. Your income actually is not reduced, it's just delayed, right? Now, if we're selling at a discount, then your income is reduced proportionally, right? But it's reduced a linear amount. As a funder, if you think about it, if I used to be able to roll a chunk of money 4 times a year and now I can only roll it twice a year, my income is cut in half. And then if we're selling at a discount, let's say it's buy for 100, list at 200, and we sell for 150. So now we're making half what we thought we would on the deal. So I'm rolling my money only 2 times a year instead of 4 times a year, and we're selling stuff and making half of what we thought. A funder's income is actually cut in terms of by four, not in half in this kind of year. That's my point.
Yeah.
So I do want to, if you're looking at getting into this, like a funder's income depends more on how quickly he can roll the money, he or she can roll that money instead of just sales price. And the operator only cares about sales price. They don't really care about speed because they know they're going to get paid eventually. So there
Mm.
is actually a conflict of interest there where the operator wants to keep price high, and the funder just wants his money back so he can roll it into another deal.
Yeah, that's a really good insight. That's a really good insight to that. So you have been on both sides, land business operator and funder. So how do you evaluate potential operators to work with, and what are your non-negotiables when you're evaluating if you're going to work with this operator or not as a funder?
Yeah, it's like a gut thing. Are they competent? Are they trustworthy? Doing it full time really helps. if they're not doing it full time, it just makes you wonder, like they're going to put their main source of income first, and their
Yeah.
land business is going to come second, and you can't blame them for that. But when you're looking for high performers, you want somebody who's already doing it full time because it means that they're successful and that their reputation is tied up in it. That's another thing is you want them to have a strong reputation in the business because I found that the reputation and the relationship actually becomes the collateral. Meaning, let's say, Kendall, you're going to become my operator. Your incentive for not screwing me is because you don't want to torpedo your reputation, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then if you and I, we already have a great friendship, but let's say we build our friendship to where we're best buddies and we have the greatest friendship ever, that relationship actually becomes collateral as well. So now Kendall knows that if he screws Drew, he is actually destroying his reputation and his relationship with Drew.
That's a really good point. That's really good. So, saying in that same vein, having been a land business operator, having been a funder, what is it that you wish business operators knew from the funding side before they even submitted a deal?
I honestly, I whenever I have an operator send me something that's totally whack, they usually haven't been through some sort of education course. And I want them to go through, like I texted Seth Williams a few weeks ago, and I'm like, hey, do you have a discount code for one of my operators? I just want him to go through your course so he can have some framework for what is in the buy box. Because I had a guy send me like buy for 300K, list at 400. And I'm like, dude, that's not going to work. But how would he know that? In the house world, that'd be great. Yeah, I would want them to go through education. What else? What was the other question?
Yeah, that was it. What do you wish that business operators knew before they brought a deal to you as a funder?
Yeah. And I don't want to do your due diligence for you. Okay. I want you to have a machine that's already running, and then I add value to that machine by infusing quick liquidity into it. I don't want to be part of your due diligence process is see what Drew thinks. I don't my top operators, I don't even look at their deals. I just blindly fund them because I know they have hundreds of track record and there's so much trust built up. I have visited pretty much every single operator I have. Like I've gone to their house, I've gone to their birthday parties, like I've gone to the graduation celebrations. I am intimately part of their life, and it's a very close relationship, and that's how we can perform so well.
Yeah, that's really good. Now, continuing in that same sort of train of thought, sounds like networking and building relationships is extremely important in many different ways to your business model and to your success. Can you talk a little bit about how can someone go about, let's say they're just not a natural networker, they're not a natural, like it doesn't come easy to them to build relationships. I know you personally, so I know that like at least for me, it's really easy to connect with you, but what advice would you have for people that need to go out and they need to network and they need to start building relationships?
Yeah, it's a skill set that most of us aren't born with, including me. Cody knows this, but the Army has you do peer evals, peer evaluations every time you go to an Army school.
Mm,
And in college, so at age 18 to 22, I was consistently peer evaled in the bottom 25%, meaning I was not well liked. Okay. And I had to look at myself and ask, what is it? Because I knew, and then I looked at the guys in the top 25%. And I compared myself to them and I realized they're not any smarter than me. They're not faster. They just are better with people. And that's it. They're better leaders. And that's when I started doing books like How to Win Friends and Influence People. I started doing all those basic books on how to be a good person, how to lead people. And then I consistently ranked in the top 25%. Age 22 to 26, I was consistently in the top 25% just from applying what I've learned.
that's really good. What were some of the biggest adjustments that you made in that process? I know that you read the books. Drill down a little bit more. What changes did you make that when you started implementing those, you were like, okay, this is moving the needle. This is changing the game as far as it comes to leading other people?
I think you have to put other people first. Um, it's like being as selfless as you can possibly be. I want to talk about this. Maybe this is a good time. I sold my flipping company like 6 months ago. And ever since then, I went into a funk and like just things didn't feel right. And I always thought it was because I wasn't busy enough. Like I didn't have enough on my plate. And I was in Dubai last week and I was hanging out with close friend. We were up all night because my jet lag was all whack. And I had this epiphany. I realized my issue is not that I don't have enough to do. My issue is that my purpose isn't big enough. And so my purpose for that first season, those first 3 or 4 years, was simply to build a stable financial future for my family. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And most people are in that season. But once you get to the point where you know that your financial future is very secure, you have to have a purpose bigger than yourself. And it has to be about other people. So I wrote on my whiteboard, today's Tuesday, I wrote yesterday on my whiteboard, my purpose is to love other people as much as I can. And we're actually seriously looking at starting the adoption process or foster care process because your purpose has to be bigger than yourself if you want to be happy. To maximize your own happiness, you actually have to pour into other people. And it like blew my mind when I realized this last week.
What led you to that realization?
A little bit of tobacco and hashish and just some good conversations.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. So when you're building these relationships, and you mentioned it earlier when you were talking about your neighbor, you've had lunch or dinner with them about 20 to 30 times at this point. How do you go about introducing, hey, by the way, this is what I do, or would you like to invest? What does that whole process look like whenever you start introducing that potential backup buyer opportunity?
Yeah. Um, so this guy, how did I find this? So I found this conference called the High Net Worth and Family Office Conference, and I call it the Billionaire Conference. And it was $2,500 for just a seat at the table and for one day. So I paid it because I'm like, who's going to be there? And Robin Williams' son was there, and super wealthy people were there. You could tell by the way they act, like they've got tons of money, right? 100 million plus. And this guy shows up, this guy who I told you about. And so I started a relationship from there. And so he knew right away, he knows why I'm there. I'm looking for money. So we connected. I forgot how we. Oh, so I actually this was a year ago. So like we exchanged numbers, we connected well at the conference, and then we agreed to meet for breakfast or whatever later on. And I wouldn't say he blew me off, but like 6 or 7 times he like said he couldn't make it. And I
Mm.
just kept persistently asking him. And I was super friendly. I never got offended. And I'm like, oh, no problem. We can reschedule for January. Oh, you can't make January? Okay, we'll do February. And he was like, Drew, the reason I met with you is because you just kept following up and you were so persistent and consistent. And so that's how I got into his life. And now I know the board member of a bank. That's cool, right?
Yeah.
So you just have to be consistent.
Are you a natural introvert or extrovert?
So 10 years ago, I was pretty convinced that I was introvert. I even did the book. What's that book on introverts? It's like super famous. I'll think of it later. It's like the top book on introverts. And I
Okay.
did the book and I'm like, that's totally me. But then in the past few years, I feel like I've shifted to an extrovert where I really enjoy being around people. And my social battery, I feel, is much longer. I still have a social battery that like runs out like maybe 4 or 6 hours or something. But I feel like I've changed, and I know that goes against some traditional research showing that your personality is permanent. But I believe it's not permanent. I believe in neuroplasticity, and I believe that your personality can actually change. You just need to train it.
Oh, that's good. So if someone's listening to this and they're like, "Oh my God, the idea of reaching out to a stranger 6 or 7 times just to have a social interaction makes their skin crawl." What would you even say when you finally do get to that breakfast or lunch? How do you approach that? What do you do?
I This is one skill I haven't had to develop. I'm like really obsessive sometimes. And when I was a kid, my so we never had any video games in my house and we didn't have cable TV,
Mm,
but all my friends did. So I would call my friend's house like 10 to 15 times in one afternoon because I wanted to go to his house that bad to play his video games. And so this obsessive, persistent nature has come naturally to me. As far as what to say when you sit down to breakfast after 7 attempts, um, I don't know. You just smile and you're just excited to be there.
yeah. So do you have any kind of like framework, talking points, whatever it is, on those very first like initial like this is totally social. We're not talking about money at this point in terms of like you fund my deals. Do you have any type of go-to outlines if you're like, okay, I want to hit this, I'm going to talk to him about this, or do you just wing it?
Yeah, I just wing it. I would usually let them, you do the small talk until they're ready to transition. I would say you can turn them off if you jump into business too quickly.
For sure.
And it's different cultures. Like in the United States, we have all kinds of this guy that I've been meeting with. He's half Middle Eastern and half, he's not Western culture. And so small talk happens longer. But if they're like German or something, you want to get down to business like in 4 minutes or something. So you
Yeah.
just gotta play it by ear and just go with the flow.
Yeah, that's really good. So when you are doing these like social meetings at first, do you have any, oh, that didn't go so well? Have you ever had any experiences like that?
I'm sure I have. Maybe my memory blocks them out. Cody didn't like me at first, right, Cody?
That's interesting.
Yeah, not
Yeah,
everyone's
that's
gonna
true.
like you. Yeah, he didn't like me at first because I used my military photo on some ads.
Mm,
But yeah, not everyone's gonna like you, and that's okay. And it stings. It sucks. There's people in this business that don't like me, but that's all right.
yeah, that's good. How do you develop that it's okay? Because there's a lot of people out there, and I think I'm one of them. I'm a recovering like people pleaser. So how do you wrap your brain around, oh my gosh, they have to like me, or what if they don't like me? Like, how do you approach that?
I think I'm really good at acknowledging like the stoic, logical side of it. Hey, there's gonna be personality mismatches and different value systems, and not everyone's gonna like you. But the emotional reconciliation of like processing that, I'm not any farther along than you are.
Yeah, I think that's really good. I like that detachment. I think that's important. And however you get to it, I think that's cool. So I really thank you for sharing that. I think that was a really
Like
good.
for 2 years, I was pretty sure Kellen didn't like me, Kellen Faulkner.
Oh, really?
I'm like, she doesn't like me. And then somehow now I'm like, yeah, she really likes me.
Yeah.
But it's
How
weird.
do you
Like we
not
still
like
play these
Drew?
games.
Yeah, yeah. So you raised an interesting point because you mentioned Cody didn't like you at first. You thought Callan didn't like you. So is it just perseverance, or how do you not say like at first blush, they don't like me, so I guess they're not for me, I'm going to move on. How did you wind up being where you are in those relationships today?
I don't know. Maybe it's just wanting, like seeing. So one thing that's helped me, I forgot, Jaron actually taught me this, and he learned it from a marriage training program, where you see the relationship as a third entity. Okay. And it could be a friendship or a marriage or anything. And the relationship is what needs to be nurtured, not the other person. And
Mhm.
so when there's a relationship that's not good, like you can see that as a challenge to overcome. Like, how am I gonna win over this relationship? And it becomes a game. You make it into a game. And it's like an advanced level of like playground tactics, right? So some kid on the playground doesn't like you either beat him up or you like play good cop and make him like you the other way. But either way, you're gonna win.
Yeah, that's really good. I think that's a whole other podcast. That could be another podcast season in and of itself, that topic. That's huge. It's huge. Just that interpersonal relationship building. So
Yeah.
shifting gears a little bit, let's talk about, have you explored dealing with funds, raising, like starting your own fund? Have you thought about that?
Yes, I have. I've extensively researched it, and I have concluded over and over again is that it's not worth the brain damage. Basically, you have this pool of money that's available to you, but you're going to be miserable no matter what. So either the money's not deployed and you're stressing about it just sitting there, or you've deployed it all and then now you have no money. Either
Mm,
way, it's like super stressful because that money is now sitting in your account. It's under your responsibility. I would prefer that money sits in other people's accounts and then I access it when I need. And then I
mm.
don't care if it's sitting there for 2 years because I don't know about it.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. So, what's next for Drew Haney? Where do you see yourself like in 5 years? What do you hope your businesses are about and what they're doing?
Yeah, I'm not a good case study for what looks like. There's no 5-year plan. There's no 12-month plan. Like I have a goal by December 31st. I want to bench, deadlift, and squat 200 pounds.
All at the
I
same
have
time?
no, like I have little goals, but I found massive success professionally by just doing whatever is the most fun, whatever is the easiest, and whatever falls in my lap. So I've had opportunities over and over again fall in my lap. And now I actually have gotten to the point where I actually need to start saying no to stuff and only say yes to the things that bring me the most energy. And so I don't know where I'll be in 12 months. I just know I'm going to pursue what is fun and where I'll learn the most and just go from there.
Yeah. So, what really lights you up right now? What's that fun scent that you're on right now?
I can't really tell you. So where is this going to be? Where's this podcast? Because I do have a really cool business model that I'm cooking up, but like, who's
Where
going
is
to
it
hear
going to
this?
be? It's going to be all over the world, man.
Yeah. So there's a reason I was in Dubai. I want to be like the war dogs, uh, for not guns, but something else. So I'm looking at starting something in the Middle East. Have a lot of fun doing it. And if it doesn't take off, then that's fine. And I just hung out with a good friend and I'll have some good stories when I'm older.
Yeah, that's very cool. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for giving to us today, Drew. You're always just such a fascinating person to talk with, and thank you for sharing and being so generous. So what are you looking for right now? What connections, resources that you're looking for right now that we can give back to you?
Yeah, it's always a teeter-totter of deals versus capital, right? So like for the past 2 years, I've had way too many deals, never enough capital. Now I'm at parity right now. So I don't really need more deals or more capital, but I'll take, if I get more deals and more capital at the same time, then that's great. So if you have an IRA where you have money in there and you can't deploy the funds into your own deals, then being a money source for me is a good fit because I've built a big machine and for half my profits, you wire money a few times a year. To me, that seems like a pretty good deal. So if you have IRA money and you're in the land business, you understand it, contact me. My Just text my cell 847-902-4577. If you're an operator and you do a lot of volume and you've built a machine that's working really well, I'd love to talk about it, but neither of us need each other. And if we did work together, it would simply be out of abundance.
Love that. And what types of deals are you most interested in right now? If someone had a deal that met a certain criteria, you'd say, I'd be interested in looking at that.
Yeah, so the sexy thing right now is like entitlements and minor subdivides. But to be honest, from a funder's perspective, the best deals are the super boring flips. The buy for 30, sell for 60. Those have the least amount of risk, the lowest days on market, and they have the same returns as a minor subdivide. Usually you're doing 2x your money, but they have half the risk and they move in half the time as a subdivide does. So just boring flips. If you want me to fund 5 flips a month, if you've got a good machine that you've built and you want to outsource a whole department to me, then we'd be a good fit for each other.
Fantastic. And if someone wants to reach out to you because they've got land deals, do you want them to text that number as well? Or how do you want them to?
Yeah, just text me. My email is drew@drew-haney.com.
Love it. And we'll put all of that in the show notes. Fantastic. Drew, thank you so much. This has been absolutely incredible. Thank you, Tara, for joining us. Cody, Shar, thank you for joining us. Everyone that live streamed, loved having you on today. So I hope this gave you some value. Check out, we will be back with another interview on Thursday. So be on the lookout for that. Super excited. Until then, take care, be safe, and we'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Kendall.
If you're interested in hearing from other 6- and 7-figure land flippers about how they've built and run their businesses, then check out my group, Only Land Fans, where I do a live interview each week inside the group. You can grab that link at the description below. Until then, be great, have a great week, and catch you in the next one.